Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Can y'all see me? All right. All right, we're going to set this off, get this party started. Let's rise and give praises. Giving all honor and praise to the Most High God, who sitteth in the seat of judgment, whose throne is inestimable, the Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, the high and lofty one who inhabiteth eternity, who has no counselor and none to consort with him. He who has reigned from the beginning, before any creature was formed, or any green shoot shot forth, before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the legions of angels first assembled. Yea, he who possessed wisdom the waters were parted asunder, or the winds of the firmament ever blew. He alone, the dreaded one, did reign, still reigns, and shall reign over all things forever. From everlasting to everlasting, El Shaddai, the Almighty God, the creator of all life, who made man in his own image, to whom he gave a heart of flesh, and has imparted him with the five operations of Elohim: eyes to see, ears to hear, smell, and taste, that he might enjoy the pleasures of eating and drinking, whereby he may obtain strength and healing from the foods and medicines of the earth that he made for him. And feeling also, both to the touch and in the inward parts, to know what was in his heart, whether he would serve Ha Elohim, his maker, or no. And besides these, he endowed him with good sense and reason and speech to interpret the things that are seen and heard, that he might comprehend and articulate his thoughts, becoming fully aware, possessing the power to make sound decisions. And in his abounding loving kindness, he granted him understanding, yea, and knowledge also, that he might have withal to pursue the things that are pleasing to the Lord and depart from evil. He to whom all honor, worship, and praise is due, the omnipotent God, God of the Hebrews, who made the sea and the dry land, the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the God of Israel, the true and living God, the author of love, time, life, and sound, who spake and it was created, for all things are done at the words of his mouth, who breathed life, the one spirit, into our first father Adam, from whom we all are come to the world, which he made for the serving, nurturing, and nourishment of man, his most precious creation, to whom he gave his most righteous law, for righteousness belonging to him alone, who is just in all things, who keep his covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, even to the seed of his beloved friend Abraham, even to us, the children of Israel, Ben Isaac and Maccabim, sons of the ancient Maccabees. For he is our God, the ancient of days, for before the day was, is he. The God of the spirits of all flesh, El Qanah, the jealous God, El Rahum, the merciful God, El Rapha, the God of healing, the one and only true healer, Hagadol, the great, Hagibor, the mighty, Hanorah, and the terrible, Elohim Zebaot, the Lord of hosts is his name. He is the King of glory. Blessed be the glorious name of his kingdom forever and ever. For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Giving due respect to the chief men, princes, dignitaries, officers, mothers in Israel, brothers and sisters, I stand before you this day, Prince Zachariah, a title bestowed upon me by the order of Chiefs Eleazar ben Lewi, ben Dodo, aka Matitya, father of the house of the Maccabees, my teacher and leader, in whose honor I speak and continue the legacy of his name, works, and teachings, in the name of our God, and the holy law given us at the mouth of his prophet Moshe, reinstituted by and in accordance with the protocol set forth by Nasi Yaakov, head knock of all the Hebrews, teacher, leader, and founder of Ben Isaacin, the first Hebrew Israelite congregation in the United States of America, whither we have been exiled because of our sins and the sins of our fathers, whom our God commissioned to bring his people together, to the intent that he might open our eyes and give us ears to hear and a heart to perceive, as it is at this day, so that we may keep his commandments, return to him, and repair the breach. I bid you in the ancient tongue of our fathers, Shabbat Shalom Lechem.
Shabbat shalom laka.
Please remain standing and repeat after me as we recite the Constitution of Israel in Hebrew from Exodus chapter 20. וידבר אלוהים
וידבר אלוהים
את קהל הדברים
את כל הדברים
העלה לאמור
העלה לאמור
אנוכי אל שדי אלוהיך
אנוכי אל שדי אלוהיך
אשר הוצאתיך
אשר הוצאתיך
מארץ מצרים
מארץ מצרים
מבית עבדים
מבית עבדים
לא יהיה לך
לא יהיה לך
אלוהים אחרים
אלוהים אחרים
על פניי
על פניי
לא תעשה לכף פסל
לא תעשה לך פסל
וקל תמונה
וקל תמונה
אשר בשמיים ממעל
אשר בשמיים ממעל
ואשר בארץ מתחת
ואשר בארץ מתחת
ואשר במים מתחת לארץ
ואשר במים מתחת לארץ
לא תשתחווה להם
לא תשתחווה להם
ולא תעבדם
ולא תעבדם
כי אנוכי אל שדי אלוהיך
כאנוכי אשר אלוהיך
אל כהנה
אל כהנה
פוקראון
וקורא ההון
אבות על בנים
אבות על בנים
על שילשים
על שילשים
ועל ריבעים
ועל ריבעים
לשונאי
לשונאי
ועושה חסד
ועושה כסד
לאלפים לאוהבי
ואלפים לא אהבי
ולשומרי מצוותיי
ולשומרי מצוותיי
לא תישא את שם
לא תישא את שם
אל שדי אלוהיך
אל שדי אלוהיך
לשווא
לשווא
כי לא ינקה אל שדי
כי לא ינקה אל שדי
את אשר יישא
את אשר יישא
את שמו לשווא
את שמו לשווא
זכור את יום השבת
זכור את יום השבת
לקדשו
לקדשו
6 ימים תעבוד
6 ימים תעבוד
ועשית כל מלאכתך
ועשית כל מלאכתך
ויום השביעי
ביום השביעי
שבת לאל שדי אלוהיך
שבת לאל שדי אלוהיך
לא תעשה כל מלאכה
לא תעשה כל מלאכה
אתה
אתה
ובנך
ובנך
וביתך
וביתך
עבדך
עבדך
ועמתך
ועמתך
ובהמתך
ובהמתך
וגרך אשר בשעריך
וגרך אשר בשעריך
כי 6 ימים
כי 6 ימים
עשה אל שדי
עשה אל שדי
את השמיים
את השמיים
ואת הארץ
ואת הארץ
את הים
את הים
ואת כל אשר בם
ואת כל אשר בם
וינח ביום השביעי
וינק היום השביעי
על כן ברק אל שדי
על כן ברק אל שדי
את יום השבת
את יום השבת
ויקדשהו
ויקדשהו
כבד את אביך
כבד את אביך
ואת אמך
ואת אמך
למען יאריכון ימיך
למען יאריכון ימיך
על האדמה
על האדמה
אשר אל שדי אלוהיך
אשר אל שדי אלוהיך
נותן לך
נותן לך
לא תרזח
לא תרזח
לא תנאף
לא תנאף
לא תגנוב
לא תגנוב
לא תענה ברעך
לא תענה ברעך
אל שקר
אל שקר
לא תחמוד
לא תחמוד
בית רעך
בית רעך
לא תחמוד
לא תחמוד
אשת רעך
אשת רעך
ועבדו
ועבדו
ואמתו
ואמתו
ושורו
ושורו
וחמורו
וחמורו
וכל אשר לרעך.
וכל אשר לרעך.
Shabu, you may be seated. And all the people perceived the thunderings and the lightnings and the voice of the horn and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye transgress not. And the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have talked to you from heaven. You shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stones. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. Baruch Shemo. All right. So let's get this thing rolling. First place we going is Exodus chapter 23. I'm sorry. Exodus chapter 23. And Scribe, you can start for us at the top.
Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked, not be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt
Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not raise a false report. It's plain and simple. It says the same thing in Hebrew. Lo tisa shema shawe, or shaw. It's false, it's vain. And that's exactly what it says in Hebrew. So nothing false, because that is vain. That is vanity. Um, and it just means what it says. Don't speak on something unless you are 100% sure what happened. Because oftentimes we go by hearsay and we don't fact check. And when you're checking facts, it's best to go directly to the source of either a first-hand witness or the parties involved. And this could potentially lead to a slew of sin to follow, because I could raise a false report and be lying and end up slandering my brother, end up creating a problem, sowing discord. I could lie on someone and say I'm a witness to something I didn't see that could cause them to get hurt, or that could cause severe judgment to come upon them. And this all depends on how diligent the judges are, right? So in the time of Daniel, we read about the book of Shoshana in the Apocrypha, where this woman was accused by two judges, two elders, of committing adultery, which means she would have been put to death. And why she was accused is because they wanted to lay with her, but she refused. So they said, all right, we're going to bring up false charges on you if you don't. And she stuck to her integrity and did not give in, trusting that God would deliver her, the judge of judges, even though these two men were judges. And it's tough when the judges, or it's a sad thing when the judges or the ones in charge are the ones perpetrating the wickedness. And so God used Daniel, who was a child at the time. So we know he was under 20, assuming he was a teen or so, who stood up and said, my hands are innocent from this blood, from the blood guiltiness, because they were going to put this woman to death. And so he caught an ear or an audience in the congregation and proceeded to recommend that the two witnesses, even though they were judges, be separated, and that even their words should be questioned. So because we are men, because men are prone to sin, we must be circumspect in everything that we hear and everything that is spoken, regardless of the parties speaking them or who's involved. And we should always do diligent inquisition, always, as the law teaches us. So if I don't go by your word, don't get mad at me. Don't say, man, you don't believe me. It's not that I don't believe you. It's that I have to be sure before I call myself a witness to such, or before I react on a statement that is made, right? And especially if a judgment is to be passed, right? Especially if it's something that could cause a slander and a defamation of one's character. Because then, before you know it, there's a whole rumor being spread about someone that is not true, which is a slander, which is against the law, which was what we read about in Leviticus 19 the past 2 weeks, right? So we're supposed to be men of truth, and uttering a false report is one thing, but the ear that heareth is just as bad. Because if you just run with it and then start passing judgment, whether it be an actual judgment that is being executed or just speaking things out of your mouth, judging your neighbor, these are things that we must be circumspect about, because we teach this week in and week out. And I hear both of my brothers, the teachers, teach this, Chief Mikhail and Chief Shama both, and myself, and we all uphold these laws, as it is written. And we must watch what we say out of our mouths. We must watch what we do, because if we don't, then we're not keeping the law. We're not observing this law. We're just siding with our feelings and our emotions and going by hearsay and then picking sides. And before you know it, we have lawlessness. And with lawlessness comes chaos. And with chaos, there's injustice. And all of these things are wickedness. And before you know it, we have disunity instead of unity among brethren. We have sowing of discord. We have hatred. We have grudges. We have all of these things to follow. It says, put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. I don't have to physically put my hand, even though this is exactly what it says in Hebrew, lo taseh, lo tashet yadka im rasha. It doesn't necessarily mean you're physically putting your hand to do something. I'm cutting out, it says. You guys hear me? Is it still? Let me know. Baruch Shemo. All right, cool. So it's not necessarily physically putting your hand. You don't actually have to do anything. But when you side with the wicked, because anytime we act as an unrighteous witness, which just means you're a lying witness or you're raising a false or vain report, which is something that is not true, this is when we become the wicked. See, a wise man could be a fool at times, but a fool could never be wise. A man striving for righteousness could do a wicked thing and then pick himself up by the bootstraps when he admit and acknowledge and confess his guilt, and then it start to improve and make amends, and then he's back on the path of righteousness, because we are men, we are flesh, so we will sin. But there are certain laws that, because of the law and because we are so bent on upholding them to the word and to the letter, we should be circumspect of what we say out of our mouths, what we listen to with our ears before we jump and side with something or run with it, and especially before we act, right? And sometimes acting is nothing more than, holding a certain view or hatred or grudge in our hearts against a person, right? That's also an act, right? Even though it's a thought. And yes, we are accountable for our thoughts, even if I don't say it out of my mouth. That's why we have in the 10 Commandments is thou shalt not covet. Covet goes on in here. It has nothing to do with the action that follows. Coveting is a desire for something that does not belong to you. So that tells us that we are accountable for our thoughts also, and that our thoughts can also be sin if they're not in accordance, in alignment with the commandments. So we must be circumspect about what we speak. We must be circumspect about what we listen to. And if there's a question, or if you're not sure, or if you only have one witness, bring the cause to thy brother. Bring the cause to the party involved or the person that's being spoken about, and ask them and inquire. Otherwise, it's just hearsay. And hearsay can lead to sin. So we must be circumspect. And putting your hand with an unrighteous witness just means siding with the untruth or the lie that they told, or the misleading version of that situation or that story, right? Or that account. And so even with two witnesses, as we see in the case of Daniel with the judges, in the case of Shoshana, we still have to do diligent inquisition. And just because the men are heads or teachers or leaders, whoever is coming from, I'm sorry, don't take my word. Do diligent inquisition, even regarding me. And it's another thing that we have to hold ourselves responsible and accountable to, that, I heard it today in teachings. I hear it almost every week. And these are laws that are being taught that we uphold. And even when it's me involved, I have to uphold it. I have to side with what is right. I can't defend myself in my wrong. I can't not be held accountable for the sin that I committed just because I'm involved, or when it involves a member of my house or my brother, right? Or my son or my wife or my friend. I still have to stand on the side of the law, of the side of the truth. And even if it condemns me, I have to hold myself accountable and I have to admit my fault. There will be no reconciliation. There will be no repair. And I think we went over it enough to know that reconciliation doesn't only happen between me and God, and then I leave the loose end of the brother who I offended or the one who I trespassed against and don't make amends with him. Because all the laws teach us how to treat each other. And you cannot make amends with God without making amends with your brother. Cain could not make amends with God and get himself right before God and improve before God while still being envious against his brother. So these are things that we have to acknowledge within ourselves. And this is where real humility comes in. We talk about humbling ourselves. We talk about that pride is the enemy of truth. Pride is the beginning of sin. But then when it happens to me, I'm so proud I don't want to admit that I did wrong. And then I look for all these justifications. No, but you did this. No, but this person did this. No, but what about that one? It's not about deflecting. It's not about shifting the blame. It's about me acknowledging where I went wrong. If they don't want to acknowledge where they went wrong, that's on them. I have to acknowledge where I went wrong, or else I cannot reconcile with my brethren and God. And that's just the way it is. And this is where the test is going to come in. This is where the test of our allegiance to God is going to come in. When it's involving you, when I am the violator, that's when my test of my allegiance to God is gonna shine. If I admit, or if I justify and put up a block and say no, it wasn't like that. It was because of this person. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean it. Or all these other excuses that come along with it. Then we're gonna really see if I'm humble before God. Then we're gonna really see if I acknowledge and agree with the truth, right? Then you're going to see how down I am for these laws when I have to admit my own guilt. See, we're real good at pointing out each other's faults. We're real good at showing each other where we went wrong. We're real good at pointing the finger at other people of lesser understanding and showing where they're going wrong. But that's not what counts, because that's not going to get you to the quickening. If anything, that's just me telling on myself, because I'm showing God where I can see it in everybody else. But when it comes to me, I'm blind. And really, that's just me telling on myself before God, because I know what's right from wrong, but yet I won't apply it to myself. And that's the real test of allegiance to God when it involves me. Tom Sheet, verse 2.
Thou shalt not fill a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment.
Right. Absolutely, Simka. Misery loves company. So that's another thing that I got to check myself on, because if it makes us feel better when we can blame someone else for doing the wrong, right? And really, that's where the real thing is. I'm miserable. I'm not happy with myself, which is why I can find fault in everybody else so quickly, right? You check it out. The happier a person is, the more likely they are to see the good in other people. The more miserable they are, the more likely they are to point out everybody's faults and complain and blame people. So, I mean, we just show who we are before God through our thoughts and our actions and our speech, right? And first, you're going to force yourself. So you're going to do the action first, and then it will change the way you feel. And then those feelings will change the way you think. And then those thoughts will change the way you speak. And then your actions will follow through. It won't become a task of forcing yourself to do it anymore. It will become who you are. It will become repetition. It will become a part of you. And that's what the law does. It's how it changes. That's how it changes hearts, minds, and actions. But if I don't force myself to do what's right first, even when it doesn't feel good to me, excuse me, and ain't nothing gonna happen. Ain't no change coming. Right? So thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. And my brother Chief Mikhail broke this down. I think it was last week, the week before. Do you guys pay attention to teachings? Because we're supposed to be able to recall what lessons were taught so that we can apply them to ourselves. And this is why I keep reiterating what the teachers have taught, because these are lessons that are valuable for us. These are what's going to help us change. And if you don't hold them in your mind, then it's like in one ear, out the other, and then nothing changes. But if you're paying attention to teachings, like you're listening, like this is for me, then you're going to hold on to those teachings. You're going to hold on to those words, and you're going to start applying it to yourself. You're going to put it on like it was coconut oil fresh out the shower, and you're going to wear it, because this is what we're trying to do. This is the purpose of us paying attention during teachings. And that's why it's called paying attention. Anything you pay for, you're supposed to get something out of it, right? And what we're getting is one of the most valuable things that you could ever pay for something to get, which is a heart. I know you thought I was going to say understanding or wisdom. We get a heart from listening to these teachings, because it teaches you the right way to feel in alignment with the way God feels. And that's where you're going to get understanding, which is to depart from evil. And that's what you're going to get wisdom through the performance of the law, once you have a heart for what is right. Once you force yourself to side with what is right. So following a multitude to do evil, when my brother broke it down, it comes in different forms. It could be you following the masses and what society does, or you actually following a group of people that you are with, right? That could be you out there celebrating, a celebration in the parade, or, keeping a celebration of the nations. Or it could be just the way you act, the way you eat, the way you dress, the way you speak, that is the same as the nations. And that's following a multitude to do evil, right? If it's not according to law, it's evil. It's simple as that. There's not two ways about it. Neither shalt thou bear witness in the cause to turn aside. Let's read that in Hebrew. Velo ta'aneh, you shall not testify, you shall not answer. Al-rib, concerning a cause, a suit. Lintot, to pervert. Akare rabim, after a multitude. Lehatot, for perversion, is what it says. So perversion is to change from good to bad, from good to evil, from right to wrong, from just to unjust. So anytime you bear witness and you're turning aside after what the multitude is saying that is false or that is wrong, you're perverting judgment. You are turning the judgment from something that could have been right to now it's evil, because the report was false. The multitude is saying something false or wrong or evil, and you side with them. You are perverting justice. You are perverting what is right before God. See, we think that being a pervert means you got to be a baby toucher or something. No, it just means you change something from good to evil. You side with evil when you're not sure if it was right or wrong. You don't know. You didn't do the diligent inquisition. Or you just afraid to be the only one speaking the truth because everybody's saying something that's wrong and that's a lie. So you don't want to be looked at as the outcast. You don't want you either afraid of what they're gonna do to you, or that's most of the time that's not the case. Most of the time it's a pride thing. We're afraid how I'm going to look in the eyes of people if I'm the only one saying something different. And I'm afraid to have people talking about me and pointing the finger at me. I'm going to tell you like this. I'm Bernie Mac. I ain't scared of you humble huffers. I'm going to speak what the book say. And whoever don't like it, your problem is not with me. You got to face the East. But ain't nobody doing that. We would rather blame a man. We would rather point my finger and say, yeah, he ain't about what he's talking about. He's wicked. He does this, that, and the third too. Maybe so. He might be wicked. But what he's saying is the truth according to law. And you got to agree with it or show God that you're not on his side. So it is what it is. You're just telling on yourself before God by not agreeing with the truth. So you want to side with the multitude? Go on ahead. And you show God you fear man. And you show God that we still proud. You can't nurture pride. You can't say you love yourself and you nurture in pride. Because pride is literally the beginning of sin. And that's how you're going to bring yourself to an early grave. Or you carry it all the while and God leave you to your own iniquity because your punishment is not here. And if your punishment is not here, then your portion is not on the other side. If my punishment is in this life, then my portion is in this life. If my punishment is in this life, then it's likely my portion is not in this life. It's on the other side. It's in the world to come. We set ourselves up. We show whose side we on. Like I teach my sons because I fell victim to this many times, and I want them to be better than me. I don't want them to be like me. I want them to be better than me. So I tell my son, train yourself to not respond right away. Whatever the case is, take a minute, 30 seconds, a minute before you speak. I don't care what the situation is, especially when you're getting corrected. Because oftentimes, that's what pride do. It make us blurt out as soon as somebody corrected. No. It wasn't like that. No. It wasn't like that. No. Just keep your mouth shut. Because 9 times out of 10, we wrong. 9 times out of 10, we wrong. We're just not humble enough to admit it. And if you're right, there's a certain confidence that comes with the truth. There's a certain confidence that comes with knowing that you're right. And you don't have to defend yourself. When you know you're right, like the truth needs no defender. I say that over and over. Because when you know you're in the right, you're not going to be so quick to try to prove your case. Only the proud looking to prove their case because they know they're wrong. So that's why they're so quick to speak. That's why they're so quick to defend themselves. That's why they're so quick to condemn and blame and complain. But a man that stays siding with the truth or that's trying to conform to the truth, let's be for real, we're all wrong. We all wear the same size shoe. We all wearing it. The shoe fits all of us. But a man that's trying to conform to the truth, that's trying to align his heart and his thoughts with the laws, he's going to be humble and not so quick to speak. He's going to hold his tongue and observe and listen. And this is where controlling our emotions comes in, because your emotions, all of our emotions are driven by pride. It's like they're all in the back seat and pride is the driver. And you're like, your turn. Go ahead. And so we have to be aware of this. And when you're really striving to side with the truth, it takes courage. And that's why Moses told Joshua and God told Moses, be strong and very courageous and of a good courage, it says. Right? And Chazak ve'ematz. That's the slogan. That's the booster that Chief used to give us when we leave his presence. Chazak ve'ematz. strength and courage. That's our motto. That's what we live by. That's the Maccabees. But that strength and courage is not just when you're facing a battle. That strength and courage is not just because you know you're different when you walk out in the streets and you carry it upright as an example, as a walking example, and as a walking representative of our God in a world where nobody serves him. But it's also having the courage to stick up for what's right, even amongst your own brethren, when everybody's saying one thing and you're the only one that's going to side with the truth. It takes courage to stand up for what's right. They may want to fight you. They may want to kill you. So be it. That's my ticket to the quickening. You die for the laws of God. You die upholding the truth. They're going to have to answer for that later. And it's sad to say, but this is what happens amongst ourselves. This is what happens amongst each other. You see, you ain't going to hear me talking too much about, I'm going to teach the law. I'm going to teach, like I did last week, that you can't cut, trim, or skim off a side, a section, or a lock of your head. And we ain't supposed to cut our hair. And I'm going to teach that birthdays is the number one holiday of satanic worshipers, right? And we weren't supposed to do that. Only wicked men like Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar celebrated the days of their birth. But what I'm going to focus more on in these lessons on Shabbat is where we going wrong. Because if we could see where everybody else was going wrong, but we ain't working on ourselves and we're not working to be just and upright, then we're not just like them. We're worse than them because we know right from wrong and we still choosing to walk in wickedness. And then we justify ourselves concerning us. When it's me, nah, I ain't like them. Well, at least I don't cut my hair. Imagine that. Imagine how we look in the eyes of God, looking to justify ourselves with the laws that we do against the laws that we're breaking. That's backwards. And it just shows that we have more knowledge than them, but less understanding than them. Because we know the law, but we do not depart from evil. We have to be circumspect, more so than our brethren of a lesser understanding, because we are going to be held to a higher standard in the heavens. And when I say we, I'm speaking to the congregation, but especially us as the teachers, and I'll be first. I put my head on the chopping block every time I speak, because I'm going to be held accountable by every word that comes out of my mouth, especially when I'm on a platform to speak to a mass of people concerning God's laws. Whether that mass be 20, 30, or 1,000 people, it's all the same. It's all the same because of the position that we're holding. That's why Chief taught us, you get up and you dress and you wear your best, like if you was in a coliseum speaking to 1,000 people and there's only 20 people or 10 people in the congregation. Because he taught us to take this serious, to uphold this position as something that is sacred, right? So we shouldn't have no fear of man to side with the multitude, to pervert justice. We should stand up for what's right, regardless of what man we have to answer to for it. Well, do what you're going to do, man, because God got my back. I'm going to speak what the book say, and if I see something false, I'm going to say something. I'm not going to let it slide, because silence is also a sign of agreement. And I ain't going to stay silent and have God condemn me in the heavens for siding with wickedness. No, I'm not. I'm going to speak on it. You ain't got to like me, but you got to like the truth that comes out of my mouth, because that's going to determine whether we have our allegiance to God or ourselves. And that's why even amongst Israel, even amongst the Hebrews, even amongst the Israelites, the God of the people, the number one God of the people, not just the nations, the people, is themselves, their own hearts. We know too much to be like them. Tamshi, verse 3.
Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause.
Countenance.
Yeah. A poor man in his cause.
Continence is something else.
Continence?
Yeah, continence is something else. Countenance. Countenance meaning you should not favor a poor man in his cause. You're doing great, by the way. I'll tell you that every week. You're doing great. I'm going to always refine you. All right, that's the way my teacher taught me. Even when you're doing good, you still won't get sharpened. Okay? All right. Neither shalt thou favor a poor man in his cause. Just because he's poor, he doesn't get let off the hook. Oh, man, come on, man. You know, he just stole because he was hungry. So, why didn't he ask? Why didn't he offer to work for it? There's no excuse just because a man is poor, he could sin, and we side with him. No, sorry. Nowadays, we side with the rich against the poor guy. Or we side against the guy who's strong, against the poor guy, or against the stranger, instead of siding with the truth. The law is our answer. I think I read that in the chat earlier. The law is the answer for everything. I think my brother Peno, Chief Peno commented that. The law is our answer for everything, right? We turn to the law for everything. When you cleave to God, that's how you cleave to God. You turn to the law for the answer for everything. Before you act, make sure what it says in the law first. Before you speak, make sure what it says in the law first. Make sure that we in the right before we speak or we act or we start to feel or think anything in our hearts. This is what it means to truly be circumspect. Tamshi, verse 4.
If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again.
Okay, if you meet your enemy's ox or his ass going astray, he's your enemy. If you meet his ox or ass going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. Hasheb tishibenu. Use the word for return it to him again, twice in different conjugations. You shall surely return it to him. What he did to me. Why you think God made me be the one to see his ox and ass going astray? Why wasn't it somebody else? This is another thing we got to ask ourselves. Why did it come across my sight? Why did it come across my desk? Why it came across my ears? Why did it come to me? Because a lot of times people will blame you because you're the one that it came to. Why it came to me? Now I got to make sure I do the right thing. Now I got to make sure I judge righteously. Now I got to make sure I carry out what the law says to do. So if I'm the one that saw the ox and the ass going astray, I got to bring back to him. Now, hey, Jonadab, bring him his ox back. This is how we do because we proud. Hey, yo, Jonadab, bring Nathaniel his ox back, man. Because we so proud, you don't want to face your enemy. This is your enemy. He don't like me. I don't like him. It's of our own people, by the way. Crazy, right? And instead, I don't want to face him. I don't want to squash it. I like, what's the word? Edging this thing on. I like keeping it going because I got a grudge, because I'm proud. Grudges come from pride. Grudges come from selfishness. We have to break that. It's the opposite of what the law teaches us. Tamshi, verse 5.
If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him.
Right. Say the same thing. If you see the ass of him that hated thee or thine enemy, right? Sonaaka. It could be either way. He hated thee or thy enemy. Robetz takat masao. Crouch down under his burden. Wechadalta, right? And you forbear, me'azob, from helping, lo, him. Azob ta'azob, you shall surely help imo, with him. This is where we're going to find out how much we love God by showing how much we love our neighbor. Right? You show the love of God by the treatment that you treat your neighbor with. How you treat your neighbor. Tamshi.
Thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in this cause.
Thou shalt not wrest or change, pervert. That's what it says in Hebrew, tateh. The judgment of the poor in his cause. So whatever his cause, his suit, we have to judge it according to law. Simple as that. No big eyes, no little U's, no partiality. Whatever's good for the goose is good for the gander. If this guy does it and nobody's saying nothing to him about it, then why am I running to this guy? And all of a sudden, I'm so fervent about this must be corrected. But this guy doing it right in front of me all the time, and I don't tell him nothing. Right? I don't care if he's poor or rich. It got to be carried out the same way. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I learned that when I came to the camp. That was taught in Ben Isaacin, the old Ben Isaacin. And we supposed to be upholding those same principles. Right? The protocol set forth by Hanasi Yaakov, head knock of all the Hebrews. Right? God chose him to open our eyes to the intent that we might return to him and repair the breach. And we over here siding with wickedness, judging partially, taking sides and not liking somebody just because, or you bearing a grudge because of what you said to me or what you did, or maybe you ain't even said it to me. You just said something I ain't like. And then we want God to believe that we on his side. You show God that you on his side by showing that you on the side of your brother. We show God we on his side by how we treat each other. You can't be so bent like I'm serving God. I'm on with God's side. And then you treat your brother like trash. You holding grudges. You got resentment in your heart towards him. You raising up false reports, slandering, bearing false witnesses, not bringing back his ox or his ass, which in today's case, we don't have oxes and asses. So it's metaphorically speaking that you wouldn't do the good to him when it was in your power to do it. Pass him by, overlook him. We can't say we on God's side. Not with those type of actions, not with those type of feelings, not with those type of thoughts, not with those type of words. Tom Sheen.
Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not.
In order for me, go ahead, finish it out.
For I will not justify the wicked.
God ain't gonna justify the wicked. Man might justify, you might justify your wickedness and have a whole bunch of people on your side, but that don't count. Because God's judgment in the heavens is gonna stand regardless of how many people like you and side with you. So, or how many people are afraid of you, or how many people keeping their mouth shut just for the sake of not wanting to speak up for the truth because they fear man. So, in order for me to keep from a false matter, I must do a diligent inquisition, because how am I going to know that it was false? Unless I was a witness to know that it was false. So diligent inquisition must be a part of my routine when I hear of a matter. That's how you judge righteously. That's how you judge your neighbor in righteousness. You must do diligent inquisition. We don't just take one person's word. Hey, man, you know what that brother did? Hey, let me check this out. And it's always in a sidebar or in a secret, behind in a secret chamber. It's never in front of everybody. And that's when you know you got to question it. Because if it was so right, why ain't they just voice this thing in front of everybody? And even so, who are the witnesses? Okay, let's bring them here. In fact, separate them, same way Daniel did. Where did this happen? Who said this? Who did this? You gotta ask the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You gotta ask, and the two witnesses better have the same answers for everything, or else somebody's lying. There's the three sides to every story: your side, my side, and then the truth. And I say this all the time also, perception deceives its own master. You know what that means? My perception deceives me into thinking that that's the truth. But that's my perception of the situation. That doesn't always mean that it's true 100%. Because my perception is biased. I'm looking at it through a lens of how I feel. That's our problem. We judge every situation according to how we feel. So when I see something and I hear something, depending on who it's about, is going to depend on how I'm going to judge. That's not justice. That's not truth. That's partiality. That's wavering. Right? That's me siding with my own heart. Right? So I should have the decency to bring it to whosoever is involved and ask directly what happened and get their account. And if somebody else was involved, I got to ask that person too. Separately, together, however, I must inquire. And witnesses. Tom Shee.
And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise and perverteth the words of the righteous.
The word for gift is shochad. It means a bribe. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinded the eyes of the wise and perverted the words of the righteous. Say the same thing in Hebrew. Right? So we need to be circumspect about what a bribe is. Somebody will just give you what you like and then side with you. Or because this the guy that gives me all the time, I'm going to automatically side with him. I ain't going to tell him he's wrong. I don't want no yes men around me. I don't want nobody around me patting me on my back, telling me I'm good. I prefer if you don't like me, but to my face, not behind my back. I prefer if you just tell me what it is that you don't like about me, and then we can hash it out. I could tell you it was like that, it wasn't like that, or I don't feel like that. We could hash it out, and then a friendship could start brewing, or love could start brewing between us. Or we could at least squash what was wrong. You ain't got to like everything about me. I ain't got to like everything about you. But I got to love you, and you got to love me, whether you like it or not, because God commanded us. So you got to find something in you, not in me. And I got to find something in me, not in you, that I can love about you. Yeah, why I say I got to find something in me to love about you? Because I'm the problem. If I ain't loving my neighbor like myself, I'm the problem. You ain't the problem. I don't care what you did to me. If I can't love you, then I don't love God. As simple as that. So I got to find something to fix inside of me that will allow me to love you. And if you're not thinking on that psychological level right there, you ain't ready to change. You ain't ready to change your ways. We're not ready to let go of pride. We're not ready to let go of vanity. We ain't ready to love God. Take no bribe, for the bribe blinds the sight of the righteous. It blinds the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. It will make a righteous man execute a wicked judgment. Why? Because You sided with him, or because you gave him something, you caressed his ego, whatever it was. And now the person that's in the seat of the judge, and it doesn't have to be a judge like an elder or a teacher or a head. Once the case is brought to you, you are sitting in the seat of the judge. Now it's up to you to judge your neighbor in righteousness. So because somebody comes in and side with you or caress your ego or give you things, man, this guy look out for me, man. I can't tell him he's wrong. Man, you better. If he's wrong, he's wrong. Look, you could have just gave me something. I could have been starving. You could have just gave me a plate of food. And then you turn around and transgress. I'm going to rebuke you. I'm sorry. Now, we ain't got to, come harsh at each other all the time. But I mean, hey, listen, man, listen. I know you just gave me this food and all. But I can't sit back and not see this and not say nothing. I can't sit back and hear this and not say nothing. I got to correct you where you're wrong, brother. I'm sorry. Simple as that. That's right. That's right, Chief. Chief Kazak. Save him from iniquity. But guess what? You save yourself also. Because it says, rebuke your neighbor and suffer not sin on account of him. So we saving each other. The rebuker is saving both of us. I'm saving me by rebuking and him. If he hearken, because that part is up to you. We got to show God whose side we on. We talk about improving, making amends. That's why the title of this lesson is Amend Your Ways and Doings. We're going to get more into in depth. But you can't amend your ways and your doings without changing the way we feel, without forcing ourselves to feel and align our feelings with the law, align our feelings with the principles of wisdom, align our feelings with what the books teaches us, what God is teaching us. There's a moral code that we need to uphold. There are principles of wisdom, principles of righteousness that we need to uphold. It's not always under a thou shalt or thou shalt not command. It has to deal with our ways, and your ways have to deal with the way you feel and the way you think. If we're not changing that, we ain't busting a grape, man. I could wear turban, garment, read every single ingredient, do research, make sure I'm not eating no drop of blood or fat in nothing. Everything clean. Wash every time I get unclean. But if I ain't changing my ways, none of that counts. Read from the front to the back of the book, man. Read from Genesis to the end of 2nd Maccabees. And you will find that God is always correcting us. If it ain't about the Shabbat, it's about our ways. It's about our ways and how we treated each other. Tamshi.
Also, thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt.
I want to talk about this one for a second, because there's so much to this verse that I think is overlooked. Not to say we don't understand, but we don't consider. Not to say we don't comprehend what we're reading, but we don't consider other people's plight, right? Where you come from, right? What have you been through? See, in order for me to start considering somebody else in the light of who they are, right, that makes them act a certain way, because, I heard today about giving passes, because of what you meant to my father, my mother, or things that good that you have done to me, to my parents, to my brethren. And so I give you a pass because of that. But when we're trying to have a heart like unto God, we also need to learn that sometimes people deserve to get a pass just because we understand where they come from. We understand where they're coming from. We understand that what they've been through or their actions are a result of what they've been through and trauma that they are suffering. still suffering from, which is why they act a certain way. And that's why I said real love is when you try to understand the other person. Because if I try to understand you and where you're coming from, I'm going to be less likely to fault you and blame you for every little thing you do wrong. And that's why love hides a multitude of faults, because I can understand you. My teacher, my friend, second father to me, Chief Eleazar, told me things about himself that I will never divulge to another individual. But it taught me certain things about who he is, and it made me understand him a little bit better, so that when he was hard on me, I didn't take it as personal, because I understood, okay, I understand where he's coming from. I know how he loves. I know that he's got a big heart, bigger than anybody else that I know, and what he's telling me right now may seem harsh, but it's out of love, because I understand where he came from and what he had been through. And that helped me understand why he is the way he is, why he loves so hard like this. When I take, some other individual might take it as he's being mean to you, but it's not. It's just, that's the way he loves, man. And we have to understand that about certain people, man. If we really want to love each other like we love ourselves, then we have to look at each other and say, it's a little deeper than the surface. Let me find out what triggered this. I know this thing about him. So I know this thing about my brother. I know this thing about my sister. I know this thing about my wife. I know this thing about, whoever we're dealing with, to say, all right, let me not take everything so personal. Let me not only look at what's happening on the surface, because it's always deeper than that. Sometimes we are reacting off of things that we've been through that we still haven't overcome, or that we still fight and struggle with within ourselves every day. And, I have to apologize to my family sometimes, because I know you might be saying, what does this have to do with the verse? And I'm getting to it. I promise you. Just bear with me. I have to apologize to my family sometimes, because I snap sometimes, because I'm in chronic pain. And unless you experience chronic pain, then it's hard for you to understand. And it makes you frustrated. And sometimes I snap, and then I catch myself and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I'm just in pain. I'm a little frustrated right now. And then I tell myself, you can't use that as a crutch either. You can't use that as a crutch to continue to apologizing for why you're frustrated. You have to just control being frustrated, even though you're in pain. And it's difficult, because sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind, because I got to take pain pills just to be able to go to the chiropractor for free, or else they're going to charge me an arm and a leg. My insurance won't cover it. I have to be in this program. So I got to take a pain pill, and then it causes all these side effects, and it has psychological effects, and then it makes me irritable. And then the next thing you know, I'm snapping, and then I'm using that for a crutch and as an excuse. Oh man, the pain pill made me like that. I didn't mean it. So that other day when I crushed you with words, don't blame me for it. No, you can't do that to people. You can't do that to people. So on the side of me, on the person that's delivering whatever words or treatment to the other person, we have to be mindful that we don't take our frustrations or our feelings or our misery out on somebody else and then use that for a crutch or an excuse, or fail to address it, because oftentimes we run from the mirror but point the fingers at other people, and then we blaming and complaining about everybody else. So we have to recognize that the one thing that's going to help keep us in line is thankfulness. Being thankful for everything that God gave us and did for us. Because David even thanked God for chastising him. And in chastisement, he said it made him better. If it wasn't for the chastisement, he wouldn't have become the man who he is. And that's why for years I boggled my mind why God would allow the adversary to provoke David to number the people knowing that he was going to bang him with a heart attack. After the 3 choices of punishment, when he knew what David going to say and it's going to fall on the people, and that David would have a heart for them and then run to the threshing floor of Araunah to offer sacrifice, and God accept the sacrifice as an atonement for the sin of the people and then stay the angel's hand. He knew all this was going to go down. And then after that, bang him with a heart attack. It boggled me, man. I said, why would God do this to him? And then I read that part in the song where he said he thanked God because it made him better for the chastisement. I think it's Psalms 119. And I said, man, David was something else, man. He has such a heart like unto God that he had to recognize God in everything that happened to him, right? And then give thanks for it, right? And so when we give God his thanks, right? Or when we walk around thankful, that's right, brother. It could be worse. It could be worse. And just acknowledging that we're still here and that he gave us the best gift of all, which is enlightening our eyes to show us how to deliver our souls from destruction. I mean, what else could bother you after that? You know, he gave us the key to life itself. And for that, we should be thankful. So on the side of the person who's delivering or administering the treatment or the words out of our mouths, we have to be cautious and mindful not to allow our frustrations or our miseries or whatever we're going through or have been through in life to, cast that on somebody else, and then use that for a crutch or an excuse later on, or not even acknowledge it because we're not looking in the mirror enough. And then for the person that's receiving it, you have to say, sometimes don't take everything so personal, but look at the person who's administering it and say, well, I'm gonna try to love him like I love myself. And let me try to understand where he's coming from. Maybe I know things about him that other people don't know. So I can understand why he's like this, why he's coming at me like this. Or, you know what? I know he's going through a rough time right now. So I can understand why he might be frustrated. And you know what? I'm not going to take it so personal. I mean, this is when you start growing like a giant in the spirit, man. And you're able to see things clearer and through the lens of love at all times. So what does this have to do with not oppressing the stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger? Well, if we know the heart of a stranger, it's because we've been in a stranger's shoes, and that's what God is telling us, right? And so we personally have to have been in the shoes of a stranger in order to not oppress the stranger. You personally have to have been in the shoes of somebody who suffered trauma to not blame that person or disregard their actions that came as a result of that trauma. Now I'm going to get specific, right? Because they did studies and tests to show that the American black man suffers a higher adrenaline rush. His adrenaline levels are higher than any other, any other black man on the face of the earth. And scientists attribute this to something they call, and just bear with me because there's truth in all things, there's wisdom in all things. We just have to have the insight or the eye and the ear that's humble enough to hear it so that we could accept it and learn, right? So they call this transgenerational influence. And it means that when a certain people have been through a certain amount of trauma over a certain amount of years, that their offspring are affected through DNA damage, right? And that damaged DNA causes things, physiological and physical changes, right? That is not their fault. So I was talking to my wife about this because there's we hear about cases all the time where innocent black men are killed, and then, people post about it, and then white people pop up in the comments like, oh, please stop complaining already. That was slavery. That was a long time ago, and disregarding the fact that it still happens, right? and that this is an ongoing thing, and this is a result, right? And believe me, just understanding what I'm talking about is going to help us in keeping the law. Just bear with me. So having knowing this, if you are a black male in the United States of America and you are not first generation, meaning you did not just move here from another country, but you had ancestors that lived here, especially if your ancestors lived here or in the Americas during the time of the transatlantic slave trade, dating way back then it's likely that you could suffer from some of these transgenerational influences, which is why if, you know, my wife, if I told my wife the other day because a police pulled up behind us and she got afraid. And I said, yeah, I feel that too. And I said, but there are men in this country, black men in this country, they ain't even got to pull up behind you. You just see them pass by on the streets and your heart race immediately because what if they turn around and come mess with me? And then I had to explain to her that Israel also, so before the transatlantic slave trade, and whether you're black or not, if you're of the line of Israel, we've been through so many captivities and so many oppressive societies where we were the tail and not the head, where we were the bottom of the totem pole, where we were treated unjustly and as slaves and killed and murdered and pillaged, and that it's in our DNA to feel inferior or have developed some type of transgenerational influence where it affects the way we think and act towards each other. Because just like the Willie Lynch syndrome, which was perpetrated on purpose as a psychological warfare against the black slave by teaching them to hate each other, you know, light skin against dark skin, fine hair against kinky hair, by uplifting one and downing the other, giving one privileges, giving the other no privileges, making his work harder, you know, and doing it in front of each other, not to mention what they did to the women and children, you know, and pregnant women, which I don't want to keep going over because it's a traumatizing thing to talk about. But the whole point is, and what the conversation I was having with my wife is that we have to educate ourselves, because if we're not educated on what happened, if we're not educated on what happened generations ago, we won't understand why we are the way we are today. Why are we constantly against each other? Why are we constantly having this edge or this feeling of resentment, not only towards each other, but maybe other races, right? And so my wife said, well, if that's true, then these transgenerational influences are on the American black man, which is why he got higher levels of, you know, adrenaline and why we feel like we're still not being treated as humans, because we're not, and it's still going on. Then the white man must have some. And she goes, I ain't talking about you. I ain't talking about you. You different. I said, I didn't take offense, but she said, then the white man must have something in them too. And I said, well, this is where we got to think, you know, outside. We have to take ourselves outside of ourselves to think with compassion, because it's different. And I'm going to tell you why it's different. See, white people that grew up in a superiority complex household, thinking that the white race is the superior race, look down on other races or look down on black people because of what they've been taught. And not only at home, but we've all underwent this indoctrination in school when they taught us, oh, yeah, electricity invented by a white man. Oh, math, science, oh, yeah, all that comes from the Greeks and Romans, white men, and which is not true because they stole most of it from the Egyptians, right? Or from other cultures, even Israel, but don't expect them to mention our names because we the byword in the Proverbs, part of the curses of Deuteronomy 28. So keep in mind that we've been indoctrinated to think that everything good is white. Everything that started something good or that was the beginning of something good was white. And we're only taught about the bad things that happen to black people in this country without, like, tell me, how many black inventors have you heard of? Which is why I used to do a podcast with one of my brothers. Y'all might know him as Chief Mockley, the son of Chief Amos, right? But it's my brother, and we used to do a podcast, and we used to bring up stuff that we don't learn in school, right? To educate the community. And we had a segment every week where we talk about giving props to ancestors, right? And you might say, well, this ain't your ancestors, but how do you know? And then I just wanted to say, well, I'm gonna always fight for what is right and who's being oppressed. I'm gonna stick up for whoever it is because I know what it's like. My father's first generation here. My family wasn't here. My family, I didn't grow up in a white superiority complex household. My father came from his whole family being persecuted and dying in the Holocaust. So I can understand and relate to that. But the point is that we have been taught to look at the outward and we're taught to look and judge people on the surface, not deeper than that. So I told my wife, I said, you know what? These people were taught this. And so their children's children that are no longer racist, but they're still ignorant. They don't understand the pain and the plight of the American black man. Or don't talk about the American black woman or the black woman that grew up in the Americas, because she's been through more trauma and pain than any other woman on the planet, on the earth. Sorry, I'm gonna stop using those words because it's not in the book. It's not a planet, on the earth. And so, you know, we have to understand where people are coming from in order to be able to put ourselves in their shoes. So I said, nah, I'm not gonna say it's the same, because what the black man went through is way worse, and he suffers a physical change that happened in his body to where his adrenaline levels are constantly rushing, even when there's no danger, because of generations of trauma. You know why it's so hard for a black family or why it's not hard, but why there's less percentage of black families that stay together is not only because of the Willie Lynch syndrome, but what's still being perpetrated on TV and social media and school today. Uplift the woman, down the man. She despises her husband. He despises his wife. The black son don't want to grow up to be like he don't want to. He don't have confidence. He don't want to go. And if we don't have the law, and if we don't have this knowledge, then what happens to us as a people? We become victim to circumstances. We become victims to these transgenerational influences that affecting us at the DNA level. And maybe I don't have ancestors that were here from the antebellum South, but I have ancestors that were in the Assyrian captivity, that were in the Babylonian captivity. And so I need to dig deep down in myself and find what makes me me, and stop using crutches. And don't be afraid to look in the mirror, but acknowledge where I'm going wrong, where my hangups are at, why I'm frustrated, why I'm angry, why I got a short temper. What's wrong with me? Why I hold grudges? And we all got to look at ourselves and look in the mirror and stop saying, well, him this and he's this and they that. Because if I'm working on me and you working on you, we could live together in harmony. The law could actually take an effect on us. So, what does this mean to this verse? We won't oppress a stranger if we understand the heart of a stranger. And even though you might never been in the shoes of a stranger, which none of us can say, we've all been in the shoes of a stranger. You've all been in a situation where you were the only one of your kind or the few of your kind, and you were mistreated and oppressed because of it. And if you black and you live in the United States of America, you live your whole life as a stranger, even though your people are the majority of where you live. Because this is what is perpetrated and taught to us and indoctrinated in us in school, on TV. You know, it ain't so recent that black actors started being portrayed as heroes, right? So all this has an effect on our minds coming up and in school, what we were taught. So now we got to get deeper than that and look inside of ourselves and be free thinkers and allow the law to change your heart and your mind. But you got to read the law. You got to study the law. You got to believe that the words that you're reading are directly from God, not for him, not for her, not for them, not even for us, but for you personally. And God loved you enough to open your eyes. He saw something in you. And that alone should cause us to be thankful. And that gratitude should lead us to say, I got to start reading to show God I appreciate this. I got to start studying to show him that I want to, because the only thing you could give him is obedience. You can't give him a plate of food. You can't buy him a gift. I said this to my sons earlier. You're going to go and take something that the creator created to give it to the creator as a gift, like as if it don't already belong to him. What do you think the sacrifices was for? For us? I mean, for him? It's for us. He just want to see what you're willing to give up. Did you pick the best? Or did you give him the worst? Or did you keep the best and take the second best to sacrifice it to God? Every action, every situation, every decision is a test. Every trial, every chastisement, every evil thing that happens, every good thing that happens. I always remember when my brother Chief Mikhail says, you can't get too happy either. You mess around and transgress. Every good, every bad, everything that happens is part of the test. How you gonna deal? Do you have a heart for others? You can't say you love yourself if you don't have a heart for others. And so I told my woman, that great-great-grandchild of that white family that was, committing those heinous acts against your fathers in this country, they ain't racist no more. But don't blame them. Don't be so harsh on them for their ignorances, because it's all they know and all they've been taught, and that's the environment that they grow up and go home to every single day. They look at TV and the world through that lens, and they don't know better, and that's not a crutch. But that's for us to understand, because we know better, because they could learn if they wanted to. But that's like taking a mouse out of one population with a bunch of mice and putting him in a box by himself and expecting him to fare just the same. It's not. We have to consider everything that the other person went through, even though you never wore those shoes. And that's the way that we're going to be able to not oppress a stranger, even though we don't completely know the heart of the stranger. Because we might have been strangers, but we ain't been that kind of stranger before. What kind? Any kind that is not us. That's where compassion comes in. That's where empathy comes in. That's where just having a heart, understanding, comprehension, We have to be able to see that it's always bigger than us. There's always something deeper than the surface. All right. I'm going to cut this right here, because we want something else we're going to go into about amending our ways. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 18.
Start from the top.
Absolutely.
The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause thee to hear my words.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Don't stop unless I stop you.
Then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels.
Wrought means to do. He did something. He made a work on the wheels, right? Mm-hmm. What have he made? He has wrought something. What has he done? He wrought something, okay? Yeah. So that's what wrought means, Old English. So God said, go down to the potter's house. Check this out. I'm going to show you something. Go down to the potter's house and just watch. And while he's there, he goes down to the potter's house. He saw the potter making something on the wheels. Now, if anybody knows pottery, ceramics, how you make it, there's a wheel, and it's usually powered by a pedal. Before there were electric wheels that you just turn on, they were powered by a pedal. Some of them are still electric, but you power them with a pedal because you have to be able to slow down and speed up the pedal as you're making something. You put a slab of clay on there, and you put your fingers in it, and then you shape up. As the wheel spins, you pull up on it, and the clay forms a bowl, a vessel, whatever you're making, right? Tomshi.
And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again another vessel, as seemed good to be pottered.
That's good
as
too.
Good to to the potter to make it.
Right. So the potter's making a vessel. I get some more honey. The potter's making a vessel, and the clay, because if you ever done it before, if you ever seen it done, maybe you just watch the movie Ghost or something. But while they're making the pot, if you move your hand the slightest direction and you don't keep it steady, then the whole thing will just and it will mess up, right? So he saw that happen, and the vessel was marred in his hand. And so when that happens, you could just take the clay, keep the wheel spinning, and press the clay into a ball. And then you can start over again, right? And so that's what Jeremiah witnessed. Tamshi?
Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, saith the Lord? Saith the Lord. Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are ye in mine hand, O house of Israel.
Now God said, hey, look, I could do with you guys, with the whole nation, as the potter. If y'all get messed up and corrupt, I could just destroy it and start new again. Like he told Moses, step aside. Let me wipe all of them out. And I could make a whole new nation out of you. And he would have still kept his word with Abraham. It would have still been the same seed of Abraham. We just would have been Moshites today. Yeah, but God knew that Moses is going to say the right things to pacify his anger, because Moses being the most meek man upon the face of the earth, and I got to use him for an example all the time, because he had the heart that God was looking for, not only in a leader, but for the rest of the people to have. Right? Even though they rose up to kill him, he said, go ahead, God, get them. I'm going to stand aside. Hey, who am I to step in the way of God? He didn't say that. He said, no, God, because then if you do this, the nation's going to speak bad about your name. And if you're going to say that it was only because he thought of God's name, and not that Moses knew that by saying that he was going to pacify God's anger, because he did have a love for the people, then you got to go back and read that a few more 100 times. Because Moses showed how much he cared for that people in the wilderness over and over through many instances. Right? So, right? I heard you, Chief. I heard Chief Shama teaching that today. And so this is the heart that God wants us to have. And this is why he chose Moses to be such a great teacher and example and leader. Because he wrote, God told Moses what to write about himself. We forget that when we read him, this is not just Moses' account. This is God's account of what he saw from the heavens that Moses was going through. And then told Moses to write it down. How could you be the most meek man upon the face of the earth and write, and I, Moses, was the most meek man upon the face of the earth? First of all, you can't even say that if you're a man, because you don't know the rest of the people of the earth. But that that's number two. Number one, that's not meek to write that. That's a proud thing to write down about yourself. So that's how we know God told him what to write. That's just one example. But he had that heart, man, that we should be chasing after. David had that heart. He said, man, let me not fall into the hands of man. And then he saw where a plague broke out in Jerusalem. Oh, man, what have I done? Oh, man, let me hurry up and go pacify God's anger around her. Give me them sheep. No, I ain't taking it for free. I cannot offer to God what I didn't pay for. Here, take this. And I'm going to buy this land off of you too. He just said, let me borrow this threshing floor real quick. He bought it. That's the same place the Temple Mount was built. The temple was built. I hope y'all know. The threshing floor of Araunah was the mound that the temple was built on. And that's also Mount Moriah, where God showed Abraham to go and sacrifice Isaac. Same spot. Check it out. Don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Tamshi.
At what instant I shall speak concerning a nation, and concerning a kingdom to pluck up and pull down, and to destroy it. If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them.
Look at that. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? God said, if he have already pronounced against a nation to pluck up, pull down, and destroy it, if that nation, after the sentence went out, turned from their evil, he will repent of the evil that he thought to do to them. Nachamti, he will repent, he will bethink himself, he will change his mind. Ain't that something? The God that said he would never change his mind will make an exception for those that make an exception for his law or for what is right in his eyes. That's why I always say, God making exceptions for those that make exceptions for his laws. Did he not say the Moabites shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord? Even to their 10th generation, they shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. But was not Ruth, who we just heard about today, who Chief Mikael taught us about today, the great-grandmother of King David, a Moabitess? See that? We got to look at these things, man, because we like to be like, God ain't put up with it, I ain't putting up with it. No, God said they should die, they should die. See, we all want to be like God when it comes to sitting in the seat of judgment. But none of us want to be like God when it comes to showing that godly compassion, that godlike mercy, that godlike love, that godlike, feeling for somebody else, even though they did something wrong. See that? You see that? Even though they did something wrong that warranted for God to destroy the entire nation. If the Canaanites would have turned from their wickedness, he would have repented to destroy them too. He's God. He said it right here. Any nation. And he spoke to destroy it. If they repent of the evil, then he will repent of the evil that he thought to do unto them. Why can't we forgive like that? He's fronting right now. He's trying to act like, no. I didn't forget what you did. Look, man, it ain't gonna take no one time or two times, man. You gotta have a track record. You gotta show me for years it's gonna take for you to make this up to me. The difference with us and God, which will make your heart so godly if we act this way, is that God can see the heart of people and we can't. So he can look, and after one turn, or they just made up their mind, no, they will turn. They're sincere. I can see it. Yep. So I'll repent of the evil. We can't see that. So he said, I ain't God. I can't see his heart. I don't know if he's going to turn. He got to prove himself. If you just were to be like God and let it go and forgive off of that one turn that he made, that one good turn that he did, or that one act to show that he was repentant, to make amends, you know how huge that would be in the heavens, because God knows you cannot see that person's heart. And you think that if you do that, God's going to leave you to their mercy if they're not sincere, and you're going to let them do you dirty again? Where's the trust? Where's the trust in our God? I don't think he's going to have my back because I showed that same mercy, the mercy of God, to an individual that's like unto myself. I'm better than you, man. I'm better than you. I don't do what you do. Maybe not. But I do things that you don't do either that are wicked, or maybe worse. Right? So these are things we need to consider, man. When you're trying to amend your ways before God, when you're trying to amend your doings before God, because we know that if you're going to amend your ways, you have to show it in action and doings. That's why it's called, the lesson today is called Amend Your Ways and Doings. And if we're not showing it through action, Ain't no amends being made. First of all, you might rarely even get an apology, much less somebody making amends through doings and actions. And that's crazy, because if I can't even admit that I did you wrong, that the thing I did to you was evil, you surely ain't getting an apology, and you're surely not getting no doings coming after it to amend. And there's no reconciliation. That's all right, because me personally, I ain't looking for it. Not from nobody else but myself. How could I demand of another other than myself? Hey, pay attention. How can I demand of another other than myself when I'm the only life that I'm in charge of for a time in the flesh? Imagine me demanding of everybody else except for myself. What you should have did, what you should do, why you ain't do this for me, why you ain't do that for them? You should have did that. You ain't doing this. You ain't on your P's and Q's, or you ain't on that. What about me? What about me? What about me? What am I doing to make amends? What am I doing to amend my ways and my doings? This is where it counts. Maybe if I amend my ways by showing you that I want to make amends for the trespass and the harm that I've done to you, maybe I might inspire you to do the same. Not because I'm looking for it to come back to me, because maybe you'll do it to somebody else now. And God will give me that credit and say, you were the example. You turned many away from wickedness. Not because I'm looking for stripes in the heaven either. My father told me, we don't do good because we want something in return. We do good because we are good. And if it ain't in you, it ain't coming out. That's what we got to understand about certain people. God saw that it wasn't in the Canaanites to do good. We read it last week. We'll sum up that chapter before we go today. We saw in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, where Solomon said, even though he knew their cogitation would not be changed and their malice was bred in them, yet he gave them place of repentance, even though he knew they wouldn't change. He showed mercy to them, even though he knew they wouldn't change. Are we trying to be godly? Because we got a lot of examples that we could apply to ourselves to be like unto God. And we use the justification or the excuse to block that and say, nah, because then he's going to do this to me. Nah, but then they're going to do it. If thou serve God in truth and sincerity, what dost thou have to fear? I think what it is we just make excuses because we don't want to be like God. We don't want to forgive. We don't want to let it go. We don't want to show mercy. We say, nah, that's God's mercy. Only God could show that mercy. Only he could love them. He made them. It's an easy cop-out, man. It's an easy crutch. We walk around with crutches and we ain't even got broken legs. We utilize crutches to justify where we're coming up short. I ain't giving myself no crutches. I ain't gonna keep apologizing because I snapped on you in my frustration. I'm gonna control that frustration and I'm gonna control my response, my ability to respond. I'm gonna hold myself responsible. I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I'm not gonna blame. I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna say it's the Norco making me spaz out the day I take it, because I gotta take it twice a month to go to my appointments twice a month, and then I snap for the next 2 days. Talking about it's the Norco. No, it ain't. It's me. It's my trauma. It's what I'm not facing the mirror inside of myself. It's because I have shortcomings that I'm not addressing. I'm frustrated because I choose to be. Everything is a choice. Until we learn to throw down those crutches and learn how to walk without it on your own 2 feet, we're not dedicated to God. We're dedicated to ourselves. Tom Shee.
And And at what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a kingdom to build and to plant it. Wait, did I already read that?
No. Continue. If I don't stop you, you continue.
If it do evil in my sight, that it obey not my voice, then I will repent of the good whereof I said I would benefit them.
Right. So on the next hand, if he spoke concerning a nation that he would build and plant us like he did Israel, right? Because if we read this book, we're the nation that he spoke about. We're the kingdom that he was going to build and plant, right? And cause to flourish, right? So if that's the case, he said he would repent of the good that he thought to do to us if we do evil. And we see that we are the walking example of that. He spoke concerning us to build us and to plant us, and then we did evil in his sight. And he repented of the good that he thought to do to us. Now we're the bottom of the totem pole. Now we are the byword and the proverb. We are the captives. We are the exiles. We don't even have a representative among the nations. That Israel, when they sit in the council of the UN, they don't represent us. Those are the children of Japheth and Edom that moved down there from Germany, Poland, Hungary. They migrated to those places from the land of Khazaria near the Caucasus Mountains after they converted to Judaism. When a few of our tribe of Judah went there, read about the Khazars, and they converted with the intent that they would one day return to the land, because the king was Edomite at the time, and he agreed that he's going to convert to Judaism, and told his subjects, yep, we're going to all convert to Judaism, and we're going to teach our children that we are Jews, and that one day we're going to return. We're going to pass this down also. One day we're going to return to our land to reclaim it. But this is Edom trying to get back the land that they believed Jacob stole from their father, the children of the Edomites. This is who we're talking about. And that since the land of Khazaria was inhabited by Japhethites, different families of Japhet, whoever was in that area, or Togarma or whoever, that's who they were mingled amongst, and our fathers are mingled amongst them as well. So yes, some of those white European Jewish people are of the seed of Jacob as well. But they ain't the ones in power. They ain't the ones sitting on the seat of the government in Israel. Because God told us we would be the tail and not the head. So wherever we are in the world, different colors, we will not be the head, we will be the tail. Because when God spoke to plant us and to build us, we did evil in his sight. And therefore he repented of the evil. Of the good, rather say. He repented of the evil that he thought to do to us. And now here we are. Now this is where we need to start counting our blessings. This is where we need to start giving God his thanks. Because even though we did such atrocious acts against God and betrayed our God amongst the nations where he has scattered us, he chose to wake us up. And of all the people that could call themselves Israelites or Israel in the world, not just the United States, not just the Americas, we all over the world that are here, having this knowledge that he passed down to his last prophet, Chief of Chiefs Eleazar, Ben Lewi, Ben Dodo, a.k.a. Matithia, father of the house of the Maccabees, all of us that acquired this knowledge, who still upheld the legacy and the protocol of Hanasi Yaakov, who only taught the laws of Moses the way they were written, and according to his understanding, and then pass it down. And our teacher sought out God with all his heart and with all his soul. And God opened our eyes through him. And now You know, and I ain't gonna leave out, for me, I can't leave out Chief Amos. He had a big part for me. He played a big part for me. You know, I ain't gonna leave out that the other teachers are still my teachers. Chief Shammah and Chief Mikael. See, I'm big on giving credit where credit is due. I ain't gonna rob nobody of their credit. I ain't looking for none either. But I'm gonna make sure I give credit where credit is due. Because you can't forget where you come from and then say that you're thankful. It don't work that way. You got to show your thanks and appreciation, not only by, here, thank you for this gift, I'm gonna give you a gift back. No, but by your actions, by your view, by your perspective, by your words, the way you speak about people. And also through acts of appreciation. So I look at this and I say, man, I don't care who was, you know, you know, I was here first and all this. Anybody that came after me, I'm not big on that. You know, I learned from certain brothers who are not teachers. I learned from certain brothers on the way they carry it, and they ain't never had to say, I'm bigger than you. I was here before you. I'm Chief Hooga Hooga, and you was a layman when you came in. I don't care about that, because I recall being taught there's no big eyes and little U's. So I'm going to treat the guy that just came in the same as I'm going to treat my teacher, with the same justice and the same heart, right? And I learned that from my teacher, because as much as I sat up under him, I learned more from watching the way he walked than I ever learned from anything that he ever spoke to me hours overnight in his room, many nights, you know, studying, walking in the streets, you know, lecturing me. I learned more from watching the way he walked, you know, and then from what my father taught me. So it's always bigger than you. It's always bigger than me. We can't forget who we are. We can't forget our genetic makeup. We are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, men that walked perfect before God. And I don't want to hear no crutches. I don't want to hear no blaming. I don't want to hear no complaining. I don't want to hear no excuses. Hold yourself to that standard. You know, I'm here to boost you. I ain't here to tear you down. But sometimes it might feel like I'm tearing you down, because that's what love is. Love is correction. Love is when somebody gonna tell you something that you don't want to hear, not because you need it. You may not see that you need it. It's for you to be humble enough to say, man, why did God send this to me like this? Is it because I need it? Or just make a statement. Well, I didn't think I needed it, but who am I? Remember, because perception deceives its own master. So maybe I am violating. Now I got to start analyzing myself a little better. Why God made this come to me? Why is this directed to me? Maybe I got to go inside myself. Maybe I got to clean up my ways. Maybe I got to check myself. Right? And so we take this for a lesson, because God made proclamations. God made sent out sentences or promises that he withdrew from. When if the sentence was taken back, is because that nation turned and did good. And he said, nah, how can I punish him that does not deserve it? Them that do not deserve it. And then the good was taken away when we turned against him and did evil. Now, I know we all want to be that part right there. Huh? We all want to follow that part. Yep. See, that's why that brother can't get nothing. Because when I said I was going to do that good for him, that's before he did that evil to me. Yeah, he ain't getting nothing. I ain't giving him nothing. God did that. I can do that too. But when it comes to showing mercy, nah, I can't be like God. That's God, for God to have mercy like that, because he made them. You know what I'm saying? I ain't make them. I can't have that type of love for them. It's impossible. We got all the excuses in the book, man. I tell my kids, you got more excuses than a dictionary. More X's, Q's, and S's than a dictionary. Everything just to say why you can't do something. You don't feel like weak when you make an excuse to say I can't do something and justifying it. Why you don't do it, and your justification is blaming somebody else for why you can't choose and use the privilege to choose that God gave you, your own free will to do something that's right. It's somebody else's fault. You're not ashamed to say that? I am. I'm sorry. I don't care what you did to me. You can't stop me from doing good. I don't care how hurt I am. You ain't gonna stop me from repairing my heart. God taught me better than that. My father taught me better than that. My teacher taught me better than that. And ain't none of us go through the pain. I ain't never go through the pain and struggles and trauma that my father went through. I ain't never go through the pain, the struggles and trauma that my teacher went through. Imagine me making the excuse. They didn't. Tom Shee.
Now therefore go to speak to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I frame evil against you and devise a device against you. Return ye now every one from his evil way, and make your ways and your doings good.
Right. I love the way you read, son. So proper and clear. Good job. I had to laugh. I said, man, he doing it. He doing it. He reading loud, clear. I love it. At what instant I may speak concerning the nation. Okay, my bad. Now, therefore, do thou, what verse was that? 11? Now, therefore, go to speak to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, thus saith the Lord, if I frame evil against you, if I, what is the word for frame? If I form evil against you, if I devise evil against you, and a device against you, right? A thought against you. That's what it says, a kashab, right? Kosheb against you, thoughts. And I think against you. Return ye now, everyone from his evil way, and make. He said, I frame evil against you, not if. I frame evil against you, and I devise thoughts against you. Return everyone from his evil way and make your ways and your doings good. It's a warning. It's a warning. And while we're on this topic of this verse right here, it made me think when I read it. There was a whole campaign in the 90s about searching the caves of Qumran, second excavation, because they just paid. Smithsonian said, I know there's more writings there. Somebody at the Smithsonian, right? Yeah, I don't agree with their whole organization and what they stand for, because they're into hiding information from us. But God does not allow certain things to remain hidden, right? And at its appointed time in his plan, it will be revealed, right? So in 1940, I think 6 or something like that, there was a little Bedouin boy watching his father's flock, a little Arab Bedouin boy in the Sinai Peninsula. And one of the goats got away and ran into a cave, and he went after it. But instead of running into the cave, because they're taught you don't just run into a cave, right? That would be foolish. So he threw a rock in there and to see what was in there. And it hit a vessel, and it busted like a pottery vessel, and busted. So he went in there to see what it was, and he found scrolls. And this was the first findings of what they call today the Dead Sea Scrolls. And he took those scrolls, gave it to his father. His father sold it to somebody in the marketplace for like $5 or whatever amount of money he got. Was cheap. And then one day the merchant that was going to sell them had them, and then had them on display. And somebody came from the marketplace that just happened to be from like Department of Antiquities, or they knew someone at Department of Antiquities. And then they found it, and then they called them, and then they came and they paid the man for it or whatever, probably some cheap price also. And then they hired a team from the Department of Antiquities and the Smithsonians, and they went to go search against in that same cave and in other caves nearby in that area. And this is where they began to find what they call today the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they found all the books in the Old Testament, and some books from the Apocrypha, including Enoch and Jubilees. And whether or not they give us the real translated copies of them, is still up in the air. So that's why we don't take anything from those books as fact unless it matches up with what we read in the Tanakh, right? But with that being said, in the 90s, they ran a whole new excavation where they found like 10 more caves and found a whole bunch of new scrolls. And so this is when they thought it was complete. And then in 2021, there was another independent archaeologist who went up there to do a dig, and they found fragments. They found a bunch of fragments that they pieced together, and it only made two pieces. Right? This fragment was only two pieces from two separate books. Now, one of those was from the book of Zechariah. It's from chapter 8. So let's go there real quick. Yeah, let's do it right there. Go to Zechariah chapter 8. Actually, you stay where you are. You stay where you are. Let's keep this brief and to the point. Okay. So Zechariah chapter 8, and it was I believe verses 15 and 16 or 16 and 17. That's the only pieces that they found. It was only two verses, right? 16 and 17. And this is what one fragment translated and said, "These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor. And love no false oath. For all these are things that I hate, said the Lord." That was it. That was the only piece from the book of Zechariah, chapter 8. From the whole book of Zechariah, that's all they found. Right? And they revealed this on CNN, but before that, the brother Yehoshua sent me a link where it's this online news channel. I forget what it's called, but sometimes you get some good news that they don't show you on TV on these online news channels, right? And they got money too. They got their resources too, but they're just not putting out what mainstream media wants them to tell. So that's why they don't get a cable network behind them, right? So anyway, and he revealed it. And then later it was revealed on CNN, and he read it. And when I heard it, I said, this is a warning. People say God don't speak to us no more. But it's not a coincidence that this other independent archaeologist team put up a team and went and go and find, and they pieced together fragments. And when they pieced together, it was a complete 2 verses. And that 2 verses is everything that's going wrong in the world today. These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. These are the things that ye shall do. I mean, come on, right? You speak ye the truth, every man to his neighbor. Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. Nobody's speaking the truth today in the world. No justice is being kept. No judgment of truth and peace is being kept in the world. Let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor. Every man is against his neighbor in this world. And love no false oath. Everybody be selling dreams, selling lies, and people just go for them. Believe them. They'd rather believe a lie than the truth. For all these things are things that I hate, said the Lord. God had to let us know. Do these things because these are the things that I hate that you're doing right now. And he said it over 2,000 years back then when the prophet Zechariah said it 2,500 years ago. And now it's being reiterated, but only those 2 verses on national TV, on the largest mainstream media news channel in the world, CNN. You think that's a coincidence? Ain't no coincidences. No such thing. God is merciful. Ain't no more prophets. So he make the newsman spit it. Then the second, I'm going to get to the last kicker of it, but then the second piece that they found, also fragments that they pieced together, was from the book of Nahum, chapter 1. No, the book of Nahum, chapter 1. And it was verses 5 and 6. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence. Yea, the world and all that dwell therein. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. That's it. 2 verses. First one's a warning. Do this. Because God hates these things. So start doing them. The second one is another warning. about what's going to happen. Now, here's the key. I looked it up in Hebrew. It says the same thing. Maybe, quake is tremble or whatever, but okay, same thing, same message, same thing. And in verse 5, it says, and the hills will melt. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence. It says past tense, but it says, yea, the world and all that dwell therein. And far as I know, the world has never been burned and all that are therein yet. So this is one of those few prophecies that had not come to pass yet by the mouth of the prophet Nahum. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can abide the fierceness of his anger? None. His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. He's telling us how the whole world is going to be destroyed. And he gave us a key on what you could do to escape it. Now, that's still going to befall the earth. It's going to happen. But we don't have to suffer by it. Keep his laws, and for the rest of them, who is for, you're going to keep those words also that we just read from the book of Zechariah. Now, here's the part that got me when I started thinking about this. The words that told us what we should do come from the book of Zechariah, which translates to who God remembers. So that message is not going to be for everybody. The ones that's going to take heed to it, because all the world heard it. It was on CNN. All who watched it. And if you didn't watch it, you're hearing it now. All who heard it ain't going to do it. But those who follow it is going to be who God remembers. It's for you because you are who God remembers. And that's why you're going to follow it, because God knew that when you hear it, you're going to follow it. You're going to take it as a warning, and you're going to take it serious as if God himself spoke to you. And you're going to speak the truth in your heart. You're going to keep the judgment of truth, execute judgment of truth and peace in your gates. You're going to not hate every man his neighbor in his heart or imagine evil against him. And you're going to, what's the fourth one? Love no false oath. Sounds to me like you're going to be walking in truth and loving your neighbor. Well, I took it serious like it's for me, because I am who God remembers. And if you're hearing it and it moves you, then you are who God remembers. And that's why it's only going to be for who God remembers. And you're going to show that you are who God remembers by you following it. Just like when the prophets spit back then, it wasn't for everybody, but it was for who feared God. They followed the words of the prophet. And then whoever don't, this is what's coming. The wrath of God, where the whole world will be burned and all that dwell therein. And that's a warning, because he loves us. So therefore, he never withdraws his mercy from us, and he gives us warnings. And he knows all that have understanding would hear that they only found those two fragments, and that's what was spit, and it came out on national TV. Whoa, that's for us. That's for the ones that God remembers, the one that God loves. He's warning us. He don't want to see us go down with the rest of the world. That's how I took it. And that's why I said we need to start spitting this and make people aware. Those that are mindful, I like that. Those that are mindful of God's law, right? Just what we heard today, right? Oh, did that Book of Tobit, right? Call all them that are mindful of God's laws. And mind you, Tobit did that also because you can't go inviting somebody to this Feast of Weeks celebration up here in Nineveh if they ain't mindful of God's laws. We can't just tell all our brethren, because they're going to snitch us out. Right? You get caught keeping God's laws, and that time you get put to death. Right? So these were the two fragments that were found. This was the message that God is still speaking to us in his mercy through the hands of people that don't even keep his laws, through the voice and the mouth of people that don't even keep his laws. That's why I said it's always bigger than us. It's always bigger than you. It's always bigger than me. It's about God and his plan and his mercy. And we got to try to fix our hearts like his and align our feelings and our thoughts and our words and our actions with his law, with the principles, what he's teaching us, the moral code of justice and truth and mercy and wisdom and understanding that he's teaching us through these words. And you can't be proud and think that you're going to get it. Pride works like blinders. You didn't see things that the horse wear. You can only see what's in front of him because he's racing. They don't want him getting distracted. That's what pride do to you. Can't see it. So, and then the second thing is, okay, that message came from who God remembers. So it's only who God remembers is going to follow it. And then the destruction comes from the book of Nahum. Nahum is the same root word as Noach. The last time that we heard that word, which means comforter. And why is it comforter? Because God was comforted in the destruction of the wicked, and that there was hope for the new generations of the earth to come from Noah. He was comforted in destroying the wicked, in destroying the evil. He was comforted. That's why Noach was used, the comforter. And Nahum means comforting. Where my Hebrew teacher at? Chief Kazak, comforting, the comforting, comfort, right? Nahum. Right? So why is he comforted? Because the evil is going to be destroyed once again. That's the proclamation against the evil being destroyed once again. But this time for good. Forever. God, peep this, how this came. The warning of the words of what to do, what thou shalt do, what thou must do to those to who God remembers through the name of the prophet who God remembers. And then the sign of the end of how this world will be destroyed with fire and all that dwell therein through the mouth of the comforter or the comforting one, because God will be comforted when the evil is destroyed, like he was the first time after the flood. God, peep this, man. I'm telling you, it's huge, man. It's bigger than us. Tom, should you go back to Jeremiah where we left off?
And they said, there is no hope, but we will walk after our own heart, after our own devices, and we will everyone do the imagination of his evil heart.
They didn't listen. They said, nope, ain't no hope. We're going to do whatever we want. We ain't listening to you. What time is sunset over there? Somebody want to put it in the chat? I don't know how much time I got. It's 8:08. All right, cool. We got enough time. What is this? Okay, so they said there's no hope. We're going to do whatever we want. We ain't listening to you. We're going to follow everyone after the imagination of his evil heart. People today feel the same way, but they don't say that out loud. Matter of fact, they front like they're with it and say, you right. But we don't see no changes. But there's no changes. Everyone continues to walk after the imagination of his own evil heart. It's just like God told Ezekiel, you like one that sings a song or that plays an instrument. While you're around, they love the song. But as soon as you leave, they're right back to their wickedness. Every Shabbat teachings, we all with it. Yeah, right. Yeah. But then when it comes time during the week where a situation arises where you are tested and your own pride is pricked, and you have to admit where you're the one that's wrong, or you have to be the one to extend the mercy or to extend the forgiveness, we harden our hearts. The proof, love is not tested when everything is going good. Love is tested when things go wrong. That's when love is tested the most. In any relationship amongst a people, love is tested when things are going wrong. Not when everything is good. Solomon said, every man is a friend in prosperity. Of course, you my friend when I got it and I got the riches and you right next to me. Of course, you my friend. I can't do no wrong. But let me lose the riches. and see who's still my friend. Because he said an enemy can't hide himself in adversity. And I ain't gonna be bent on counting. Yeah, yep. That one hated me. I remember that time you did that hated me. I see how you talk to me. I know you hate me too. I'm not bent on that, because the law don't say they shall and they shall not. The law says thou shalt and thou shalt not. So all I'm concerned with is how I'm supposed to treat you. You got to figure out if it's in you to keep the law on how you're supposed to treat me and everybody else. I already made up my mind. And proof is shown through actions, not words. That's why he said a covenant made by sacrifice. You see somebody making sacrifices for them laws, for these laws, and going all out for God. And you know what? It's not just a sacrifice about, I don't wear no more mingle. I don't do this no more. No, how about sacrificing the ultimate? How about sacrificing your own heart? How about sacrificing your own pride? How about sacrificing your own likes and dislikes and ways? That's the hardest sacrifice to make. And when you can admit that you're wrong, there's hope. But when you can't admit that you're wrong and it's always everybody else that's the evil one, there's no hope for you. We have to admit first. We have to come to terms with ourselves. We have to humble ourselves. Tamshi.
Therefore, thus saith the Lord, ask ye now among the heathen who hath heard such things. The virgin of Israel hath done a very horrible thing. Will a man leave the snow of Lebanon, which cometh from the rock of the field? Or shall the cold flowing waters that come from another place be forsaken?
All right, so what? You're gonna forsake this fountain of living waters right here to follow after your own heart? Talking about you love yourself, talking about we love God. We're going to forsake the fountain of living waters. We're going to bend these words to make me look like I'm right all the time and they are wrong. Or we're going to be honest and truthful with ourselves and say, I got to get right before God and start working and making amends, amending our ways and our doings. When it says, and make your ways and your doings good, it don't say, it says, it also uses the word for improve. Haytib. Versus that. 11. Haytibu. Darakekem. Uma'alalekem. Your ways and your doings. Improve. To amend. Now let's talk about that. Before we close this, we need to understand what it means to make amends. It means to put right. Amend, to put right. To change or modify something because I'm trying to reach your standard. Because I'm trying to be accepted of God. This is where we get lost. We think that we're doing it for a person or for people. The whole purpose is so that we meet the standard that God set for us to be accepted of him. And then on another note, we think that we're doing it for God and we slack with the person because we say, I ain't got to do it for you. I'm doing it with God. You have to do both. You have to make amends with whom you trespassed against. And that's how you make amends with God. And you can't even admit that you did wrong. You can't even apologize. There will be no reconciliation. There will be no moving. There will be no amending. To reform oneself. What does it mean to improve? I'm just going through the basics. I'm not going through depths of these definitions. I'm just giving it to us basic, man, because we act like to enhance in value or quality, to make better. You have to enhance the quality of your words, your treatment towards others. You have to make your heart better. Man. Let me read something real quick from Great Point. When I read this, I said, wow. Like, you think somebody gonna do it for you? You think God's gonna do it for you? He say, concerning everything that we read last week about the Canaanites and how God dealt with them, he said, by such works, thou hast taught thy people that the just man should be merciful, and has made thy children to be of good hope, that thou givest repentance for sins. For if thou didst punish the enemies of thy children, and the condemned to death, Canaanites, with such deliberation, because he thought about it and he did it in measure, not all at once, giving them time and place whereby they might be delivered from their malice, whereby they might be delivered from their malice. He gave them time and place to repent, whereby they might be delivered from their malice. Now, you think that God gave them time and place so that he could have time to change their hearts for them? No, he gives us time before that deadline where the doors of repentance close. He gives us time to work on ourselves, to deliver ourselves from ourselves. We have to deliver ourselves from the malice that we have. The Canaanites had to deliver themselves from their own malice. God not going to do that for them. God not going to do it for you. He's not going to do it for me. He's going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves before the doors of repentance close. He said, with how great circumspection didst thou judge thine own sons, unto whose fathers thou hast sworn and made covenants of good promises. Therefore, whereas thou dost chasten us, thou scourgest our enemies 1,000 times more, to the intent that when we judge, not just so that we can say, yeah, God, get them, that when we judge, we should carefully think of thy goodness. And when we ourselves are judged, we should look for mercy. Never lose hope. Always look for mercy. And when you judge, carefully think of God's goodness before you start speaking out of your mouth to condemn someone. Yeah, they cut off. Think of God's goodness and what he did for the Canaanites. Before you say, yeah, he cut off. You cut off. That's why. That's why this. That's why that. You don't know why. Instead of trying to sit in the seat of God, instead of trying to be like God, instead of trying to be like God when it comes time to judge, let us try to be like God or in judgment of condemning someone. Let us try to be like God when he judges with mercy. Let us try to be like God when he judges with compassion. Let us try to be like God when he forgives. Therefore, when thou dost chasten us, thou scourgest our enemies 1,000 times more, to the intent that when we judge, not to get them, God, that we should carefully think of thy goodness. And when we ourselves are judged, we look for mercy. You never lose hope. I don't care what you've done. There's always forgiveness with God if you turn wholeheartedly. Okay. What does it mean to improve? To increase the value of, to advance or make progress in what is desirable. What is desirable to God, not to us. To advance or make progress. We all know we've sinned. That's right, brother. God is also long-suffering. Zacharias, my brother. God is also long-suffering. We act like we got a short span, a short tolerance for each other. You better not mess up. You better not say the wrong thing. You gone. You do one thing wrong, oh man, I'm against you forever. I ain't gonna never forget that. But you do 10 things good for me, and I'll forget all of that just because of that one wrong thing that you did. That's nothing like God. That is nothing like God. I hope that we were all inspired by the words of the Most High through the words of his prophet Moshe, or the words of God through his prophet Moshe, and the words of the prophet of God through his prophet Jeremiah, and also the words of wisdom through King Shlomo. I hope that we will all humble ourselves, turn from our evil ways, and walk upright before the Most High our God, and learn to love each other. I bid you have the ancient tongue of our fathers. Shabbat Shalom Lechem.
Shabbat Shalom Leka.
Oh, you say I got 9 minutes? Oh, you said 22 minutes, not 8:22. Okay, thank you, brother. All right, so we're going to continue from where we left off. Go ahead, Book of Jeremiah, because it's a good point at the end of this chapter.
Because my people have forgotten me, they have burned incense to vanity, and they have caused them to stumble in their ways from the ancient paths, to walk in the paths in a way not cast up.
Okay, because my people forgotten me when they burn incense to vanity, because they only burn incense either to God in the temple or to a god, a pagan god in the temple of the pagan god. People didn't start burning incense in their houses until after these ancient customs. This is where they got it from. So don't burn incense in your house. It's a pagan ritual, and it is to a god. I'm just getting it to make my house smell good. That's what you think. In the heavens, he's being charged, right? It's also in Isaiah 66. You burn incense, right? And it's as if you blessed an idol, it says. He said, because my people have forgotten me, and they've caused them to stumble in their ways from ancient past. Who caused who? The leaders, the heads, have caused the people to stumble in their ways from the ancient paths, to walk in paths in a way not cast up. The word for not cast up is silula, and it means in an unpaved road. Not either, brother. It's not good for your lungs. That Lysol, a number of chemicals. Get you a diffuser, put some pure peppermint oil, some pure eucalyptus oil, put something that God gave us. And a diffuser only uses water. It turns it into mist in the air. Right? I care about y'all, man. Lysol killing people. So in a way not cast up, it says the heads are turning to other people. The people are turning their brethren astray, to stumble in their ways from the ancient path, to walk in ways in a path that's not cast up. The word for cast up is selula. It means to walk in ways that is an unpaved path. So they're walking a whole new road, veering off from the ancient path in a whole new road that they paving for themselves. What that sound like? Every man doing after the lust of his own heart. And the teachers and the heads and the leaders are leading people away to do things the way they want it, according to their own interpretation. And this is why, if we're going to remain straight as teachers of the law, we need to understand that perception deceives its own master. We're here to make perceptions that are not backed up by other parts of the book when breaking down these laws, or when breaking down the principles of righteousness from this book. I can't tell you why because of the way I feel. I have to tell you why according to what I learned from what the book is teaching us. Other than that, it's ashpa, it's garbage, basura. And we got to be honest with ourselves and only stick to what the book says, even when it is concerning me. And when I'm in it, even when I'm being affected, especially when I'm at fault. Or when I was done wrong. Because sometimes I wasn't at fault, but somebody did me wrong. And then it clouds my perception because I'm on defense. Because I'm on the get back. Because I'm blaming and complaining. We're not humbling ourselves. Tamshi.
To make their land desolate and perpetual hissing. Everyone that passeth thereby shall be astonished and wag his head.
Like this. And that's exactly what we become to the nations. Tamshi.
I will them as with an east wind before the enemy. I will show them back and not the face.
The back.
The back and not the face. In the day of their calamity.
So when we cry out to God and he don't answer us right away, we know why. We have not fully turned to him wholeheartedly, because he said he would repent of the evil that he thought to do to us if we return to him and do good. So our idea of what it means to turn to God and start dedicating my life to God is different to God's idea of what that means. If we're not 100% doing this in truth and sincerity, see, because it's one thing to change this about my life and then to lean on that and say, yeah, I do this, I do that, I'm dedicated to God. But when it comes to changing my feelings, I'm not doing that. When it comes to changing my ways, I'm not doing that. When it comes to change the way I treat people, the way I speak, the way I think, the way I feel, I'm not changing that. And I think that these works are going to hold me up against my sins before God. It don't work like that, man. I'm trying to tell you, perception deceives its own master. Every man is right in his own eyes, but God is the judge. And it's best to say we're wrong. That's why Paulie taught us in so many ways. Chief Eleazar taught us in so many ways without teaching, just by him saying, am I doing enough? He never said, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm straight. I'm the only one in these times doing this and doing that. I'm straight. Never. I would never speak like that because I learned from my teacher. I would never say, but I do this and I do that. Never. I'm always going to say what I'm not doing. And that's why I'm not here to pat us on the back. I'm not here to say, well, what we do is good and the other congregations out there are not doing it and they wrong and they cut off. And you ain't going to hear that up here. You ain't going to hear that on this side. You're going to hear me say where we're going wrong because we're not doing enough. We think we're doing something and we're not even scratching the surface. Tom Shee.
Then said they, come and let us devise devices against Jeremiah, for the law shall not perish from the priests, nor counsel from the wise, nor the word from the prophet. Come, and let us smite him with the tongue, and let us not give heed to any of his words.
You know what that means, smite him with the tongue? We're going to speak against him, and we ain't listening to him. Tom Shee?
Give heed to me, O Lord, and hearken to the voice of them that contend with me.
He said, listen to the guys that contend. Hear me, O Most High, and listen to the guys that's talking against me. Shall evil be recompensed for good? For they have digged a pit for my soul. Remember that I stood before thee to speak good for them, and to turn away thy wrath from them. Therefore, deliver up their children to the famine and pour out their blood by the force of the sword, and let their wives be bereaved of their children and be widows, and let their men be put to death. Let their young men be slain by the sword in battle. Let a cry be heard from their houses when thou shalt bring a troop suddenly upon them. For they have digged a pit to take me and hid snares for my feet. Yet, Lord, thou knowest all their counsel against me to slay me. Forgive not their iniquity, neither blot out their sin from thy sight, but let them be overthrown before thee. Deal thus with them in the time of thine anger. Jeremiah said, get them. Do these things to them. Moses didn't speak like that. You have a choice. Now, you could try to be like Jeremiah, but mind you, you say these things and you don't have all the good deeds and the uprightness of the prophet Jeremiah to back you up. Or you could be like Moses. Even though you ain't got his goodness, you could show his mercy and his compassion and his love, even when it's your own people, because he wasn't talking about the nations. He's talking about his own people. Even when it's your own people against you, or that you think is against you, or that actually are against you, you can choose to be like Moses. And not having the good works that these men had, that either of those men had, at least that will hold you up in the time of judgment when it comes time for God to decide if you deserve mercy. And with that, I hope that everybody was inspired by the words of God through his prophet Moshe and the prophet Jeremiah and the wisdom of King Solomon. And I hope that we all humble ourselves, turn from our evil ways, walk upright before him, and learn to love each other. I bid you at the ancient tongue of our fathers, Shabbat Shalom Lechem.
Shabbat Shalom Laka.
Where is it at?
Oh,
Here we go. Okay.
swing is buck.
Shabbat Shalom.
Cake is alive.